Welcome. My name is Shawn, and you're here with me today on the Chilliwack River, or I've said Chilliwack River so many different times. You're actually here with me on the Chilliwack Lake. This is much further up, and this is where apparently I guess all the water from that river comes from that I've spent so much amazing time. Well, today you're here with me, and today we are going to do something special. We are going to do a reading of Taking Back Our Sovereignty, a potential future for voting and governance. And essentially, this is about how technology could help us become more representative and less of a participant in our own futures. And so how we could move beyond representation. So let's go. Let's see how this goes. Someone recommended to me that I should essentially use a teleprompter so that I could read it and still maintain looking at the camera. And so let's give this a start and see how this goes. Taking Back Our Sovereignty, a potential for future voting and governance. How technology could help us move beyond representation and become active participants in our own futures. For most of our lives, we have been presented with a familiar version of democracy. Every few years, we are invited to choose between a small number of candidates. We cast a vote, place our trust in the person who wins, and then wait, sometimes for 4 years or longer, to discover whether or not that person follow through with what they promise. During that time, decisions affecting entire communities, provinces, states, and countries are often made by a relatively small group of elected officials gathered together in a room. The rest of us watch. We read the news, we listen to the speeches, we debate with one another. We complain when promises are broken. Then when the next election arrives, we hear the same familiar phrase, "We'll get them next time." Well, we'll get them next time, my grandmother used to say, or something familiar. One election would come and go, and if the results failed to produce the changes people hoped for, the answer was always that we would have another opportunity in 4 years. Then 4 years passed. Another election arrived, another set of promises was presented, and once again, we were told that perhaps we would get them next time. Yet, what if our problem is larger than the person occupying the office? What if a deeper limitation exists within the structure itself? Our current systems were created during a very difficult period in human history. They developed long before smartphones, instantaneous communication, live streaming, digital publishing, real-time data, and the ability to connect millions of people within seconds. Now we live in a world where a person can press a button on a phone and immediately see the results reflected on another's device. We can send information, money, photographs, videos, and messages almost instantaneously. We can speak face-to-face with someone on the other side of the world while sitting in our homes. The device in our pockets is far more than a telephone. It is a camera. It is a publishing platform, a library, a communication center, a small computer, capable of connecting us with people and information around the planet. Perhaps it could also become a doorway into our own governance. This is an invitation. This is an invitation to imagine what the possibility could look like. It is an invitation to consider a system where we stop giving the full weight of our decision-making power to some small collection of representatives and begin to participate directly in the creation of our communities. It is an invitation to take back our sovereignty. Representation was created for a different world. The representation of system makes sense when information travels slowly, when communities are separated by great distances, when most people have no immediate way of communicating with one another, and when decisions require everyone to physically gather in the same location, representatives may appear necessary. A community chooses someone to travel on its behalf. That person enters the room, speaks for the people, and votes accordingly to what they believe the community wants. Yet we no longer live in that world. Most adults now carry a device capable of connecting them directly with information candidates, community proposals, public discussions, and one another. The representative no longer has to be the only bridge between people and the decision. Technology could become that bridge. Instead of asking one person to interpret the wishes of thousands or millions of people, we could give those people an opportunity to express their wishes directly. Instead of placing nearly all of our authority into a single election held every few years, we could participate whenever an important decision affects our lives. Instead of governing through distance, we could govern through connection. More on that voting app. The central idea is greater than simply pressing yes or no on the phone. A truly participatory governance platform would also give people access to the information they need before making a decision. Every proposal would have its own clearly organized information gateway. Anyone affected by the proposal could open it up and explore the issue directly. Within that gateway, people would find a clear explanation of what is being proposed. Videos presented by those supporting the proposal. Videos presented by those opposing it. Reports, case studies, and supporting information from each side. Explanations of how the decision could affect the community. Financial proposals showing how much money would be used, direct presentations from candidates or community members, constructive public conversations about the available options, a clearly displayed date and time for the final vote. Every participant would have access to the same central collection of information. Rather than relying upon political advertising, edited news clips, campaign slogans, or someone else's interpretation, people could listen directly to those presenting the proposal. They could hear one side, they could hear the other side. They could examine the available material, reflect upon it, discuss it, and make their own decision. The phone would become more than a ballot box. It would become the meeting hall, the information center, the community notice board, the public debate stage, and the path into the final decision. A step-by-step model for participatory governments. The following is one possibility for how such a system could operate. Step 1. A proposal is introduced. A community member, group, potential leader, or existing public office could submit a proposal through the governance platform. The proposal could involve the use of community funding, a new bylaw, a public project, the election of a leader, a change in local direction, support for a community initiative, a decision affecting a province, state, or country. The proposal would have to explain what is being requested, who would be affected, how it would be carried out, and what resources would be required. They would create this. This would create a clear starting point. People would know exactly what they are being invited to consider. Step 2. The affected community is identified. Every decision affects a particular group of people. Some decisions may affect a neighborhood, others may affect an entire city, state, province, country, or even a much larger collection of human beings. The voting opportunity could therefore be presented to everyone directly affected by the outcome. Those people would receive access to the proposal, its supporting information, and the voting process. This would allow the individuals who live within the consequences of the decision to participate in making it. Step 3. Every side receives a place to present its case. Each proposal would have a shared information space. Those supporting the proposal could have to upload videos, written explanations, case studies, financial information, and presentations. Those opposing it could do the same. The objective would be to clarify rather than theatrical performances. Those opposing it could do the same. The objective would be clarity rather than the theatrical political performance. Each side would have the opportunity to explain why it supports or opposes the proposal, what it believes the consequences could be, how the proposal could be funded, who would benefit, what concerns should be considered, what alternative possibilities may exist. People no longer have to depend upon the representative to tell them what another person said. They could hear it directly. Step 4. The public studies the information. Voting would become part of the informed process rather than a single isolated action. Participants could watch presentations, examine documents, listen to discussions, and consider the different possibilities before the polls opened. People who wanted to remain deeply involved could explore everything available. People who preferred a simpler overview could access a clear presentation of the main arguments. Participation could remain a choice. No one would have to vote, yet everyone eligible and affected would have the opportunity to become informed and participate. Step 5. Questions and constructive conversations take place. The platform could provide opportunities for people to ask questions directly. Candidates, project organizers, and those representing each side of the proposal could respond through videos, live streams, or written information. This could reduce the distance between public and those asking for public support. Rather than only hearing carefully selected campaign messages, people could watch how a candidate or a proposal organizer responds to genuine community concerns. The quality of those answers would become part of the decision-making process. Part 6. Voting opens through the smartphone. Once the information period has been completed, the vote could open at a clearly established time. Eligible participants would enter the secure voting area through their smartphones or another compatible device. They would see the available options and they would cast their vote safely and convenience of wherever they happen to be. The options could include more than traditional choices. For an election, people might select candidate 1, candidate 2, candidate 3, none of the candidates, redo the election. For the community proposal options might include approve the proposal, reject the proposal, request revisions, support an alternative proposal. This would allow people to express their genuine decision rather than feeling pressured to select the candidates, or if the option they disliked the least. Step 7. Every vote receives a verifiable code. Transparency does not mean publicly displaying everyone's names or personal actions, although they could do this. After the vote was submitted, the system could generate a long, unique identification code connected with the ballot. For example, the voter's name might receive a randomly generized 128-character code. Once the voting period had closed, the completed list of anonymized votes could be published. Each participant could then search for their own personal code and confirm that their vote was received. Their vote was recorded under the correct option. Their vote was included in the final tally. The public could examine the overall results while each individual retained their ability to verify their own participation. We no longer have to simply trust that our vote was being counted. We could see that it was. Step 8. The results are counted and published in real time. Because the votes could be submitted digitally, the results can be tabulated and published instantaneously. There could be less of a waiting for ballots to be transported, manually counted, recounted, interpreted through a series of distance processes. When the voting period closed, the results could become available to the entire community. Everyone could see the same totals. Everyone could have the access to the same published record. Everyone who participated could confirm their individual vote. Clarity could be replaced uncertainty. Step 9. The decision moves into implementation. A vote only has value when the result is respected. Once a proposal was approved, those responsible for it, carrying it out, would begin implementation process immediately. The same platform used for the campaign and vote could then be used for regular updates. The public could see what work has been completed, how funds are being used, whether the project remained on schedule, whether the original promises are being fulfilled, what challenges had appeared, whether any changes required another public decision. Participation would therefore continue after the vote. The community would remain informed throughout the process. Step 10. The leaders remain accountable to the people. If leaders were still required to organize, administer, communicate, or carry out public decisions, their roles would change. They would no longer receive years of nearly untouchable authority simply because they won an election. They would remain accountable to the people that they had agreed to serve. The videos, promises, plans, and public statements they had presented during the campaign would remain available. People could compare what was promised with what was delivered. When leaders continue to serve the community with clarity, honesty, and transparency, they could continue in their role. When they abandon their commitment, the community would have a process for responding, removing ineffective elected officials. One of the greatest limitations of the traditional election system is the amount of time people may have to wait before replacing an ineffective leader. A person may campaign on one collection of promises and then govern with a dramatically different way. They may cross another political side, abandon the platform that they earned the public support, or repeatedly fail to carry out what they said they would do. Under the familiar system, the population may have little immediate recourse. The answer once again becomes, "We'll get them next time." A participatory system would introduce an ongoing vote of confidence process. When a meaningful number of people believed that a leader had stopped representing the commitments upon which they were elected, a public review could begin. The leader would have the opportunity to respond. The community would be able to examine the original promises, the actions taken, the explanation provided, and the available evidence. The confidence vote could then be held. The community might choose to continue the leader's term, request a correction in direction, remove the leader, open a new election. This would prevent leadership from becoming a temporary transfer of public power with few immediate consequences. The authority would remain with the people. The leader would be entrusted with the responsibility rather than handed control. Elections whenever they are truly needed. Digital participation could also change the timing of our elections. Running an election would no longer require the same enormous machinery, lengthy delays, extensive paper process, or expensive campaign structure. An election could be held when it was genuinely required. If a leader resigned, failed to fulfill the role, lost confidence in the community, or simply realized that the position was no longer right for them, another election could be organized. Through the same platform, candidates could introduce themselves through videos and live streams. They could present their experiences, ideas, intended directions, and commitments directly to the public. The community could examine the available choices and vote within them within a clearly established period. Leadership could therefore respond to the changing needs of the community rather than locking the community into a rigid 4-year cycle, opening leadership to the average person. Traditional political campaigns often require significant amounts of money. Candidates may need advertising, campaign staff, printed materials, event spaces, transportation, and financial donors. This naturally gives the advantage to those who already possess wealth, influence, family connections, or access to established organizations. It also creates expectations. When a person or an organization contributes a large amount of money to a campaign, there may be an expectation that that successful candidate will remember that they supported them later. A smartphone-based public platform could reduce the need for those extensive campaigns. The average person with a genuine backing of their community could use their phone in their pocket to record campaign videos, share ideas, respond to questions, participate in live stream discussions, present their proposal directly, and present their proposed direction, connect directly with the people they hope to serve. Everyone could have access to the candidates through the same centralized system. Leadership would become more accessible to people with powerful ideas and community support, even when they lacked large financial donors. The strength of a campaign could come from the quality of the person's vision and their connection to the community rather than the size of their advertising budget. Voting on issues rather than surrendering every decision. Electing leaders would only be one part of a new possibility. The deeper transformation would come from allowing people to vote directly on issues, important issues. Imagine that a city had a certain amount of public money available. Several proposals could be presented. A community gathering spaces, improvements on transportation, a public cleanup initiative, education facilities, a creative project, another local supported idea. Each proposal could explain how the money could be used and what the community could receive. The people affected could study the options and decide where they believe the funding should go. The same process could be used for bylaws, local projects, community programs, and larger decisions. Instead of electing a small group and asking them to make nearly every decision for everyone else, the public could participate whenever their questions carried significant consequences. Representatives, administrators, and public leaders might still help organize the process, yet they would no longer hold the entire decision inside a closed room. The final authority would remain connected to the people, technology as a tool rather than our ruler. Technology should support human sovereignty rather than replace it. The purpose of the system would never be to give decision-making power to the phone, a computer, or an artificial intelligence. The technology would be a communication tool. Human beings would remain the participants. People would create the proposals. People would present the information. People would ask the questions. People would examine the possibilities. People would make the decisions. Artificial intelligence could help organize information, support creative presentations, and make large collections of materials easier to explore. Yet it would remain a tool working alongside human beings. We would avoid giving our power away to either a political representative or a technological system. The technology would help us connect directly with one another so that we could exercise our own authority with greater clarity. Participation must be voluntarily. Sovereignty also means having the freedom to step away. Some people may wish to participate in every local decision. Others may only become involved when an issue directly affects their family, neighborhood, work, or community. Some may decide that they have no interest in a particular vote. That choice should remain available. Participation could be encouraged through access, transparency, and a meaningful influence rather than forced through obligation. A person who chose to vote would know their voice mattered. A person who chose to abstain from the right, a person who chose to abstain would have that right. A person who believed that none of the available candidates deserved support could vote for a new election. The system would give more people ways to express their authentic position. From being governed from being governed to participating in governance. This model would ask something of us greater. It would ask us to move beyond seeing politics as a distant performance. It would ask us to stop treating leadership as something happening somewhere else, carried out by people we see on screens. It would invite us to become true participants. That participation would require attention. It would require people to examine information, listen to different perspectives, communicate constructively, and accept responsibility for the decisions they helped created. Taking back our sovereignty means taking back our responsibility as well. We could no longer place every failure at the feet of an elected official after handing that person all of our decision-making power. We could all play a part. We could participate in choosing the direction. We would participate in reviewing the results. We would participate in holding leaders accountable. And perhaps the most important, we would become participants in imagining what our communities could become. A possible transition. A possible transformation is the size that would likely begin through smaller decisions. Communities could experiment with participatory votes on individual projects. People could become familiar with reviewing processes, watching direct presentations, receiving anonymous verification codes, and examining published results. Different groups could explore different approaches. Some methods would work beautifully. Other methods would require areas that needed to be improved. Through experience, conversation, and participation, communities would discover which structures created the greatest clarity, honesty, balance, and trust. The purpose would never be to declare that one person already possesses the perfect answer. The purpose would be to open the conversation. We have lived with our current systems for a very long time. Their age alone does not mean they remain the highest possibility available to us. Humanity has changed. Our technology has changed. Our ability to communicate has changed. Perhaps our leadership with governance can change as well. Taking back our voice. Imagine knowing that your voice mattered all the way through the process. Imagine opening your phone and hearing directly from the people presenting the idea. Imagine exploring the available evidence without depending entirely upon campaign advertising or political theater. Imagine casting your vote from your home and receiving a unique code that allowed to ensure that your vote was counted correctly. Imagine seeing the results published clearly when the polls were closed. Imagine following the process of an approved project and seeing exactly how the promises were being fulfilled. Imagine having the ability to replace a leader who abandoned the communities and their commitment that earned them the community's support. Imagine no longer waiting 4 years to be heard. This would represent far more than a new method of voting. It would represent a new relationship with leadership. We would stop giving our power away and hoping someone else would use it wisely. We would begin making decisions together. We would still have disagreements. We would still encounter complicated questions. We would still have to listen to one another and discover ways to move through different perspectives. Yet the people affected by decisions could finally have a direct place within them. That is the heart of this possibility. This is government for the people, shaped directly by the people, with technology helping us communicate, learn, decide, verify, and remain connected. It is a movement away from passive representation and toward active participation. It is an opportunity to stand within our own authority as sovereign beings while working collectively with the communities around us. Perhaps the future of voting is more than choosing who will govern us. Perhaps it is recognizing that we are capable of participating in governance ourselves. And perhaps the small device already sitting in our pockets could help us begin. I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and attention and listening to this, me reading a published article that I put on Substack. I will link it, of course, in the bottom so that you can go back and read it yourself. I recognize that sometimes people, they observe information or they absorb it by listening to someone else speak it. Other people will want to read it for themselves so that they can analyze and scrutinize and, have that moments in time to truly understand. And yet, I'm finding all ways that I can speak and share and connect with all those people out there who would maybe like to do things a little bit differently. And, this is a lot different, I know, but it definitely does speak to sovereignty, and it helps us step away from traditional systems, which we have spent so long complaining about that maybe it's about time that we start imagining a new way. And maybe this is just a start. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, who knows, but it's me speaking right now, and I want to thank you. I also want to invite you and encourage you to come over and join my community on Patreon. You can join for free, you can join for $1, you can choose what you would like to participate in, but it would truly assist me in creating more videos where I not only imagine beauty and music and meditation in new ways, I also imagine things like this, as well as published articles on Substack and posts on so many other platforms. And I'm hoping that I can be a part of something that's uniquely different and dramatically beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing your time and attention with me. The link to Patreon's there. Of course, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and comment. Tell me here's a question for you in the comments. What was the most interesting part of this proposal about the new potential for voting and how leadership could evolve? So share in the comments what's the most interesting, intriguing idea, and let's get the conversation started, people. Love you so much. Have a wonderful day. And I hope you enjoyed this quiet moment at Chilliwack Lake. Thank you.